I just recently found myself away in the Lake District. I wasn't meant to be there, but I just happened to turn up. And while we were there, we went to Coniston, the place where Donald Campbell tried to break the water speed record and died doing so. And I managed to capture some footage and some various bits and pieces because Bluebird's now in a newly opened wing in Coniston of the Ruskin Museum. Thought you might like to come and have a look, so come along and join me. Right, so the story about Donald Campbell is that he was the son of Sir Malcolm Campbell, who was a pioneer of land and water speed records back in the early part of the 20th century. And Donald carried on the family tradition. They called their craft Bluebird, which Malcolm Campbell had found to be a very successful name for his record breaking vehicles. And in 1964, Donald Campbell wanted to break the land and water speed record in the same year. He actually only managed to succeed by doing it in the 31st of December, so he cut it a bit fine. He reached 276 mile an hour on the water speed record, but he wanted 300. Now, back in 67, he then went back to Lake Coniston in the UK, because the originals were in Australia, and attempted to break 300 miles an hour. All the preparation was carried out at their HQ, which is this building here that you can see. I only just managed to get some snaps of it. And believe it or not, for such a prestigious event, the plane was worked on just to the left-hand side of the cottage, outside. So yeah, it was quite a low-budget affair. None of these laboratory conditions. And so he was set off to attempt to break to the 300 mile an hour barrier. On the 4th of January, he intended to have a crack at the 300. So he set off from here and set off up on the lake. So, as you know, you have to do 2 runs, one each way, within an hour. He set up Lake Coniston, which is supposed to be the straightest stretch in England of inland water. On the first run, he didn't quite hit the 300 figure. It's 290 something I think he got. So at the end of the measured distance, rather than wait an hour for everything to subside and refill the tanks with fuel, he didn't. He did a quick turnaround and went for it back towards Coniston. As he went past this cottage, it's believed he was doing about 328 mile an hour. The plane infamously became airborne, flipped, and nosedived straight into the lake, causing his instant death. The back half of the machine was mostly okay, but the front was destroyed. Everyone knew where the boat was. They'd recovered a few items, including his teddy, but what they hadn't recovered was Donald. At the beginning of the 21st century, family agreements had been made, and Bluebird was recovered by the Bluebird project, and later Donald was recovered as well. They found Donald some distance away from the boat, and after lots of wonderful restoration and some disputes, Bluebird has now ended up at the Ruskin Museum in Coniston. And here is the very same Bluebird, all but restored, that made Donald Campbell quite a legend in his own life and death, I suppose. You can see some of the original panelling. Other bits have been restored. It's quite a beast. Tail fin, you can see it was jet propelled. I'll show you the jet engine. That's a jet engine from a Gnat, as in G-N-A-T. Used to be flown by the Red Arrows, they did. Well, this gives you an idea of the force of the impact when he crashed. That's amazing, isn't it? Look at that, stunning. Absolutely. It makes you wonder. So being a hydroplane, it would effectively just have been, he says, on there, on a tiny bit at the back. Now the reason Bluebird survived so well is because the original engine, for This Is It, acted as an electrode and took the corrosion away. Yes, a Bristol City Orpheus. As you can see, it's never going to run again. But by it destroying itself, it saved a lot of the boat. So there you can see the protective headgear he wore. I'm not convinced at 300 miles an hour that would have been much use, but that's it. It's amazing that that could actually be recovered. Campbell, in life and death, has obviously been very important to the people of Coniston, and they clearly mark out his grave, and there's a memorials, I should say, to both him and his chief engineer, Leo Villa. And Campbell's grave is even marked with a guide in how to actually find it. They did the same for John Ruskin, the famous polymath from the Victorian era. But you can quite freely go and visit Campbell's grave as well. So surprisingly enough, I thought you may be interested in seeing his unique gravestone. While Ruskin is buried in the graveyard by the church, there's another graveyard behind the Crown Public House, the Crown Hotel, and that is where Campbell is buried. And as I say, you can freely go and visit. It's a beautiful place. Isn't it just?